Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor. One thing I love about this time of year is two things really. I like watching the Little League World Series on TV. That's going to start here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I also like that my kids are going back to school and they get out of my hair. You don't realize just how much shuttling around you have to do with these kids when the summer is going on, and the lack of a schedule just makes them a real pain in the butt. I'll just tell it like it is. They fight more than they normally do. It's just a summer can be nightmarish at times. But the other thing I like about this time of year is I like watching Hard Knocks on HBO. And for those of you that don't know what that is, Hard Knocks is the show where every year HBO takes one NFL football team and you get to follow them behind the scenes leading up to the season starting, during their preseason games and they're making cuts of the team. And it's really, if you really want to see, one thing I love about sports is that sports is one of those areas where you still have pure competition. I mean, the NFL is literally like a meat market, and watching these guys, and I mean, you can imagine you're standing on a field and you're competing right there on the field with 4 or 5 guys, some of which are faster than you. So they're faster, bigger, faster, stronger. And so the prize goes to the guy that wants it the worst in many instances. I guess sometimes you can't overcome someone who's just physically way, way better than you'll ever be no matter what you do. But a lot of times it's the guys that just have, and I use that show as a lesson for my sons in competition every year. It's a brutal competition. I feel sorry for a lot of those NFL players because for a lot of them, it's make it or either make millions of dollars or you have nothing and you go to whatever you have to do. But anyway, all right, enough of that. Okay, I got this from XRP 2D2 at blockchain. I really love your exchange and commercial, but when will you be offering XRP trading pairs? Because I know about 1 million people who can't wait for you to offer that on your wonderful exchange. And blockchain replied to him, we have a roadmap of assets that will soon be not listening but listing. But unfortunately, we can't share what's on that list. Stay tuned. Now, what blockchain is, what they're referring to, I talked about it yesterday, I believe. They started this exchange. They just turned on this exchange called the Pit. This is the one that William Shatner is going to be their pitch man, and they're already doing commercials with William Shatner. Now, I've been telling you for over a year now that when this thing really begins to take off, you'll start to see a lot of commercials, and to me, we're just now starting to see some of this as these Wall Street backed exchanges really get ramped up. I believe that's when you'll really begin to see a lot of this. But this new exchange, if you want to check it out, it's called Pit, the Pit, but you can find it at pit.blockchain.com if you want to go trade on this exchange. They do not offer XRP yet, though. From XRP Raconteur at Crypto Cubanito, he disappeared for a little while there on me, but he's back. Here's what that Fed rate cut means for you. Now, this is an article. Yesterday, the Fed announced they were going to cut interest rates, and you all know how I feel about I think that the Fed is cutting interest rates because they can't do anything else. The U.S. is over $22 trillion in debt now, and what I thought was interesting about them announcing this Fed rate cut on CNBC was, excuse me, is that they announced it as the first Fed rate cut since 2008, and they presented it in such a way like, like the Fed keeping interest rates at ridiculously low levels was just some new thing. And they presented it like the Fed had been responsible for the last 10 years. Well, the truth of the matter is they took them down to almost zero 8 or 10 years ago, and they've left them there. For the first time in the history of the world, interest rates have been at almost zero for over 8 or 10 years, I guess, somewhere in that range. And they're trying to present it like, oh, now they've been so responsible for the last 10 years, and now they're going to decrease rates. Bull, total bull. But here is what you can expect. The Federal Reserve cut interest rates Wednesday, its first reduction since December 2008. For most Americans, the cut could mean a reprieve in escalating borrowing costs. So here's what I would tell any of you listening to me in the United States, is that when this happens, if you ever wanted to lock in on a rate for a home, or if you needed to refinance, this would be the time to do it. Because I believe that at some point they're going to be forced into a situation where they have to accelerate interest rates very fast. And so if you've locked into these low rates, it'll probably be the best rate that you ever see in the next 4 lifetimes. And the other thing here that has to be mentioned, at the same time, savings account rates may fall. What do you mean may fall? You want to talk about someone who has paid for all of this irresponsibility by the Fed is the savers. Used to, you could actually go get a CD at the bank and you would get, you could get 3 to 5%. Go try to do it now. You can't get hardly anything. And that's what responsible people who saved their money, that's traditionally what they did. But you can't do it anymore because the Fed is now in a terrible situation and they know it. Well, I wanted to read this to you because this is something you've got to see. Credit cards, they kind of went over in this article several things that will be affected. Credit cards, interest you pay may go down a bit. And all that's going to do is going to cause people to go into more credit card debt. And that's the whole design of it, in my opinion. They want that kind of thing. But I want to show you this. This blew me away. Almost half of all all card holders do not pay their credit card bill in full each month. And as a result, the average household with credit card debt pays over $1,150 a year in interest, according to a report by NerdWallet. Listen to this, considering that the average household currently owes $8,390, credit card users would save roughly $1.5 billion in interest as a result of a quarter-point rate cut. The average household currently owes $8,390 on their credit card. That is downright scary, and I'll bet you that number is even higher than that. I believe we live in credit card nation and probably credit card world, and I believe that this is the setup for the ultimate collapse, folks. The ultimate collapse. This is what you need to hear me and hear me well, young people out there. Do not go into debt. Don't go into debt at all if you can afford it. If you're married and your wife has to have a house, then get yourself one of these low rates and lock it in on a fixed rate. Don't do some floating arm where your interest rate can fluctuate as the economy changes. Get yourself on a fixed rate while these rates are at lower than they'll ever be in the history of the world, and pay cash for cars if you can. Keep yourself out of debt. Don't use credit cards, or if you do, pay them off every month. If you want, and then in my opinion, buy some digital assets. And as we come through this thing, those are going to be the heroes, the people that everybody admires, and they're going to be the wealthiest people in the world. NBK Crypto at NBKLYRAD sent me this, and for those of you that want to go and find out, really, Peter Schiff has always done a really good job of illustrating the absurdity of what these governments have done with the monetary system. And this is his podcast, but it's also his YouTube channel. You can go to Peter Schiff. He did an episode, Rate Cut, First Step on the Road to Zero. And he kind of goes through what this rate cut means for you, and he's really good at going into this kind of thing. Go watch that video. Now, I thought this was funny. Crypto D at the Crypto D. Did I hear this right? So I would have to pay a bank. To bank. UBS plans negative interest rate for rich clients. And interesting thing here, Barry Silbert answered his question for him with the same article. UBS to charge clients to park cash. So now, this is how pathetic and pitiful that this has all become. Now, they're going to charge negative interest rates. In other words, you have to pay. In other words, let's make sure we lay this out. Our governments of the world have forced responsible citizens through the way this system is set up. If you want to be a responsible citizen, you have to have a bank account. If you want to be able to pay bills, pay a mortgage, do these things, you have to have a bank account. Well, now you're being forced to have a bank account. And if you have a bank account, you got to pay the bank for the privilege of having a bank account. It's not the way it was set up, which is they pay you and you have benefits to having a bank account. Now you're forced to have a bank account, but you have to pay them to have the bank account on top of that, and not just some monthly fee. Now you're paying them an interest. This is a crime, folks. It's a crime. These people ought to go to prison. It is a crime, I repeat. Okay, XRP Canada at XRP_Canada. Hold up. Is Justin Bieber going to be getting his feet wet with XRP through his manager? I'm sure they've talked. And what this is, and I don't know why this article is being written now. This is really old news, I think. Ripple's Spring initiative is investing $500 million in Justin Bieber manager Scooter Braun and Blockchain Capital, and others looking to find new uses for XRP currency. Now, maybe this just hit the Silicon Valley Business Journal, and maybe they wanted to rehash this news, but I thought this was older news. But yes, I mean, Scooter Braun manages all these major people. So, yes, I think it's just a matter of time before they involve somehow these rock stars and pop stars into using XRP, somehow creating a use case around the talent world, the rock stars and pop stars and all. Okay, and then we got this from Sergeant Obi-Wan. Arizona to test marijuana-oriented stablecoin in state fintech sandbox. Well, didn't you know this was going to come? This in the marijuana industry is rising. It's almost like the new tobacco industry. It's rising right here with blockchain, so there's no telling what we're going to see come out of that. And next, from Michael at VAL5 Links. Former Goldman Sachs executive says Bitcoin may be ludicrously undervalued. Now, this is an interesting perspective because this is a Goldman Sachs former manager of equity and equity derivatives at Goldman Sachs says Bitcoin's upside is enormous, and BTC at its current value may be ludicrously underpriced. If you look, this is him talking, if you look at Plan B's stock flow model, you can see the comparative upside. If you try and get your head around the digitization of everything, if you try to get your head around an alternative financial system, even if it has a low probability, if you recreate a low probability of, let's say, what's the global money supply of global debt? It's something like 80 trillion. So if it's worth $80 trillion, let's say you have 10% probability. That's $8 trillion. Bitcoin is currently worth 200 billion. So even if it has a 1% chance of working, that's how probabilistic frameworks work. And then he goes on. And what it's telling you is it's ludicrously underpriced if any of these probabilities play out. So that's how crazy attractive it is. And that's why it's sucking in so many of these macro guys, because they're like, damn, nothing else has this payoff. And they're used to trading in options. Options is what they do. Binary outcomes is what they look for. Asymmetric bets is how they make a career. So they're looking at the asymmetries embedded in the space, and they're like, okay, this is super interesting. Now remember this word, folks. Asymmetric bets. And then he says, so they're looking at the asymmetries because they're getting to the core of why I own Bitcoin. And I'm going to skip to let's go to right here, because this goes right in line with what this article here says. And this is from X-Men XRP at XRP 33. This is from the Peter Schiff Anthony Pompliano debate. And I want to read this to you. This is what Anthony Pompliano is saying. This sums up why I'm invested in the short to midterm in Bitcoin. If Peter and others believe everything you just said with 100% confidence, there is 0% chance that you could be wrong. You could be missing something. 0% chance that Bitcoin could be valuable, that it could be a new technology, a new trend. It's a 0% chance that the millions of people currently buying and holding this are wrong. Don't buy it. Don't add it to your portfolio. Don't use it, Pompliano responded. And then he went on. And listen closely. This ties in with what was just said. But if there is even a 1% chance that you could be wrong, the odds, even Bitcoin as an asymmetric asset, mean that you will be kicking yourself forever for having known about this, spent all your time doing this, getting berated on the internet, and missed the opportunity. And what he's really saying here, he's using the same word used by that Goldman Sachs guy. All these traders and all these Wall Street guys, I've been telling you for months, don't think that they're going to look at all of these returns that have been had in digital assets over the last 8 years. They're not going to stare at that while they're sitting in the stock market that they know, and don't think they don't know, they know is set up for a collapse. 10 years, average recession every 6 years, we're over 10 years now. They know that that's not where they need their money to be right now. Don't think they're not looking at the returns over here and saying, man, we got to park ourselves and get ready for this, because they are. Okay. Next from XRP Big Time. This is a big deal. The way we watch TV is changing. I believe micropayments will be a big part of this. The way to public adoption is to incorporate technology into gaming and entertainment. It's happening now. Opinions welcome. I'll give you my opinion. This is the new cover of Business Week. The media conglomerates are trying to win on Netflix turf now because they don't have much choice. Well, here's what's going to happen. And this is the graphic he's showing, all these different things trying to compete with Netflix. Well, let me tell you, folks. And he talked about micropayments here. We pay X amount a month for Netflix. Well, imagine a world where Netflix incorporates Coil and you're able to watch, like I told you in either this video or the last video, that I'm watching The Office reruns on Netflix. Imagine that my son and I can watch The Office reruns and we stream payments while we're watching it, and when we stop, we're no longer paying, but we're not committed to a monthly payment to Netflix. That is what's coming, folks. And these people are about to try to go head to head with each other. And you know that one of them is going to sign on to something like Coil. Let me finish this video with this. Michelle Vandenberg makes a great point. And he tweeted this to me, or sent this to me, from @XRPAKL. Just watched The Big Short. Now, any of you who have not watched The Big Short yet, you need to watch it today. The Big Short shows you exactly what happened during the financial crisis, and you will see parallels between that and what you're seeing today. Just watch The Big Short. This will be U.S. XRP holders when the time comes. I was right, and everyone was wrong. This is the guy at the very end of The Big Short. He's showing his check off of $47 million that he made because he had the guts to invest against what all of the powers that be were saying to do. He did the exact opposite and betted against all of those bad mortgages when nobody else was doing it. And at the end of it, he's basically saying, see, I was right, they were wrong. That is what, this is exactly right. This is exactly what XRP holders are going to feel like, probably sooner rather than later. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button and tell your friends and family there will be a day where XRP hodlers are able to say we were right. I believe the evidence is all around you if you really want to see it. Thank you for listening.